Before we dive into the deep waters of the Jungian shadow, understand this: every man who has achieved genuine psychological maturity has had to confront the darkest aspects of himself. This script explores Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, those rejected, denied parts of yourself that silently control your life from the unconscious. We'll examine why acknowledging this hidden dimension isn't just beneficial, but absolutely necessary for any man seeking authentic personal power and deeper relationships. The uncomfortable reality you're avoiding. Most men live in perpetual denial of their shadow. You wake up, go about your day, interact with colleagues and loved ones, all while operating under the delusion that you're fully aware of your motivations, desires, and reactions. This is the first lie you must confront. Jung observed that the shadow represents the thing a person has no wish to be. All those qualities, impulses, and desires that contradict your conscious self-image and societal expectations. These aren't just minor flaws. They're the very parts of yourself that you've exiled from consciousness because they threaten your ego's carefully constructed identity. The harsh truth: these rejected aspects don't disappear. They go underground, growing stronger in your unconscious, where they orchestrate much of your behavior without your awareness or consent. Every time you react with disproportionate anger, experience inexplicable attraction or repulsion, or sabotage your own success, your shadow is likely at work. Most dangerous of all, your shadow operates with autonomy and power, precisely because you refuse to acknowledge it exists. As Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The 3 deadly manifestations of an unexamined shadow. Your unacknowledged shadow will inevitably surface in 3 destructive patterns that sabotage your relationships, career, and self-worth. First, projection, the most common and insidious shadow manifestation. When you're triggered by someone's behavior, experiencing intense, disproportionate reactions of disgust, contempt, or moral outrage, you're likely projecting your disowned qualities onto them. That colleague whose ambition repulses you, that friend whose sexual choices you judge harshly. Look deeper. Your reaction's intensity reveals more about your rejected self than about them. The second manifestation appears in your relationships. The qualities you're most intensely attracted to or repelled by in others often represent your own disowned aspects. The passionate directness you admire in a business partner or the emotional vulnerability you seek in a romantic relationship frequently represent qualities you've suppressed in yourself. You seek externally what you've denied internally. Third, the shadow emerges through self-sabotage and destructive patterns. When you repeatedly undermine your success, engage in addictive behaviors, or make decisions contrary to your stated goals, your shadow is asserting control. These aren't random failures, but unconscious expressions of parts of yourself demanding recognition. The collective masculine shadow crisis. Modern men face a unique shadow challenge. Cultural expectations have created a collective masculine shadow, a repository of qualities deemed unacceptable for men to express. Traditional masculinity rejected vulnerability, emotional expression, and nurturing qualities, forcing generations of men to suppress these natural aspects of themselves. The result? Epidemics of isolation, addiction, and suicide among men who lack the psychological tools to integrate these disowned parts. Simultaneously, contemporary culture often pathologizes traditionally masculine qualities like aggression, competitiveness, and dominance. Rather than teaching integration and conscious expression of these energies, many men are taught to reject them entirely, creating a new dimension of shadow material. This collective shadow creates a double bind. Express traditional masculine energy inappropriately, and you're labeled toxic. Express vulnerability, and you risk rejection from social groups still operating under older paradigms. The way forward isn't rejecting either aspect, but consciously integrating both. Jung recognized that wholeness requires the integration of all aspects of the self. The modern man's journey involves acknowledging both the warrior and the healer within, embracing strength without sacrificing compassion, and vulnerability without abandoning power. The true cost of shadow denial. The price of continuing to deny your shadow extends far beyond momentary discomfort. Every aspect of your life pays this tax. In relationships, your unacknowledged shadow creates patterns of projection, blame, and misunderstanding. You repeatedly attract partners who embody your disowned qualities, creating volatile connections charged with unconscious material. Or you project your disowned negative qualities onto them, turning them into repositories for parts of yourself you refuse to face. Either way, authentic intimacy becomes impossible, as you're not relating to the actual person, but to your projected shadow material. Professionally, your shadow undermines your leadership and potential. The qualities you've disowned often represent untapped resources, creativity, assertiveness, intuition, that would serve your growth if integrated. Instead, these energies emerge distorted and destructive, sabotaging opportunities and alienating colleagues. Psychologically, shadow denial creates what Jung called a splinter personality, a fragmented self at war with itself. This internal conflict drains enormous psychological energy that could otherwise fuel creativity, presence, and authentic power. The exhaustion many men feel isn't just physical. It's the exhaustion of maintaining a false self while constantly suppressing the shadow. Most critically, living in denial of your shadow prevents genuine self-knowledge. You cannot claim to know yourself while actively avoiding half of who you are. This self-deception undermines everything. Your choices, relationships, and sense of purpose all become built on partial truths. The shadow integration journey. Shadow integration begins with a simple but profound shift, moving from unconscious projection to conscious ownership. This isn't about self-criticism, but radical self-honesty. Start by examining your strongest reactions to others. When someone triggers intense emotion, whether negative or positive, ask yourself, what quality in this person am I responding to so strongly? Where might this same quality exist in me, perhaps in a different form? The qualities that evoke your strongest reactions often represent your most deeply buried shadow material. Pay particular attention to your moral reactions, the judgments that feel absolutely certain and righteous. These often mask shadow projections. The behaviors you find most reprehensible in others frequently represent disowned aspects of yourself. This doesn't mean you lack moral discernment. Rather, it suggests that your moral judgments may carry additional psychological weight when they touch your shadow material. Dreams provide another powerful gateway to the shadow. Jung considered dreams the primary means by which the unconscious communicates with consciousness. Pay attention to recurring characters or situations in your dreams, particularly those that disturb or unsettle you. These often represent shadow elements seeking integration. Integration doesn't mean acting out shadow impulses unconsciously. Rather, it means acknowledging these aspects, understanding their origins, and finding conscious, constructive expression for these energies. Aggression, when integrated, becomes healthy assertiveness. Sexual energy becomes creative force. Vulnerability becomes authentic connection. From shadow recognition to integration. Shadow work isn't complete with mere recognition. The journey continues through active integration of these disowned aspects. This process unfolds through several critical stages. First, develop psychological containment, the capacity to experience uncomfortable emotions, impulses, and thoughts without automatically suppressing them or acting them out. Meditation, journaling, and therapy can develop this essential skill. Containment creates the space necessary for shadow material to emerge safely. Second, practice dialogue with shadow aspects. Through techniques like active imagination, which Jung pioneered, journaling from the perspective of your disowned qualities, or working with a skilled therapist, you can establish communication with these parts of yourself. Ask these aspects, what do they want? What do they need? What function have they served in your life? Third, find constructive expression for shadow energies. Aggressive impulses might find healthy outlets through competitive sports, debate, or advocating for causes. Creative or sexual energies might channel into art, writing, or consensual exploration. The goal isn't suppression but transformation, turning raw shadow energy into constructive power. Finally, practice ongoing vigilance. Shadow integration isn't a one-time achievement, but a lifelong practice. As you integrate certain aspects, deeper layers will emerge. The humility to recognize that your shadow work is never complete marks the truly conscious man, the empowered shadow-conscious man. The man who has confronted his shadow possesses a different quality of presence. This isn't about perfection, it's about wholeness, which includes embracing imperfection. With shadow integration comes authentic confidence that doesn't require external validation. You no longer need others to confirm your worth because you've stopped rejecting parts of yourself. This self-acceptance creates a gravitational field that others respond to, not from manipulation but from genuine presence. Your relationships transform as projection diminishes. You begin to see others as they truly are, not as carriers of your disowned qualities. Intimacy deepens as you bring your whole self to connections rather than carefully curated versions. You become capable of real vulnerability, not performative weakness, but the authentic sharing of your full experience. Leadership capacity expands dramatically. The integrated man accesses a broader range of responses to challenges. Where before you might have had only aggression or passivity available, now you can choose from assertiveness, strategic withdrawal, vulnerability, or firm boundary setting, selecting the approach that best serves the situation rather than being limited by unconscious patterns. Most profoundly, you develop what Jung called moral autonomy, ethical choices based on integrated wisdom rather than social conditioning or reactivity. Your moral compass becomes grounded in wholeness rather than in rejection of disowned aspects. The truth you cannot ignore: the shadow isn't going anywhere. You can continue denying it, projecting it onto others, or letting it emerge in destructive ways, but you cannot eliminate it. The only real choice is whether you will relate to it consciously or remain its unconscious servant. Jung's harsh truth demands confronting parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding. This journey isn't easy. It will challenge your self-concept, disrupt comfortable patterns, and require facing painful emotions. Yet the alternative is psychological stagnation and a life driven by unconscious forces. The invitation stands. Will you continue living as a fragment of yourself, projecting your disowned aspects onto the world around you? Or will you accept the challenge of integration, embarking on the hero's journey toward wholeness that every great spiritual and psychological tradition recognizes as the true path to wisdom? The shadow awaits your acknowledgement, not as an enemy to be vanquished, but as an estranged part of yourself seeking reunion. The choice, as always, remains yours.